What is up, ladies and gentlemen? It's your boy, Jonathan. Oh, it's Wednesday, and you know what that means. It's time for a one-off. First of all, I missed last week, and that's honestly because I forgot it was Tuesday. So I'm going to be trying to hop back into the habit. This one is a little shorter this week because I'm still trying to hop back into the habit. But I am trying something a little new this week. This one is a chapter 1. Few things. A, I reserve the right to change the title. I might do that later. B, I reserve the right to re-record this, rewrite this. I might make this a longer story. That's the new thing I'm trying. I think I want to make this into a longer version of a story where it's like I release a chapter once a week and keep people coming back. But also, I was struggling with ideas for a moment, partially because I'm trying to push this out under a deadline. And then I remembered an idea I had from years ago, but then I started to write it and had like pieces kind of falling together, but not entirely. So, point is, I'm going to be trying this. I'm hoping it works. If it doesn't, I'll stop or let people know. But for the time being, enjoy chapter 1 and let's get into it and then talk about it later.
The Shooting Star by Jonathan Howe. Read to you by Jonathan Howe. Chapter 1. Harold, it's dinner time, his mom called out into the darkness. Harold sat in the darkest part of the backyard for the purpose of not being found. Well, if you don't eat now, you can figure it out yourself. He heard the door close. Fine, he thought. I didn't want to eat anyway. That wasn't entirely true, as his stomach let him know with a protesting gurgle. He ignored the sensation. Harold wasn't in the mood to eat dinner and pretend that all was well in the world. Technically, everything was, but not in his world. He'd missed his chance, and now Samantha was dating someone else. He didn't have proof, but he'd seen her walking through downtown with some guy. What hurts more, Harold said aloud to the darkness, is that I don't even need to be the one dating her, but it feels like I'm losing my only friend. Samantha and Harold had met in high school. Their middle schools combined their populations when it came time for high school. Samantha was the only person Harold could talk to and hang out with outside of school. He didn't have any friends from middle school, and she was the only person who he'd met who was worth seeing regularly. It's not like I want to control her, he said. I don't know what I'll do when I'm all alone again. He knew what people were like. High schoolers got into relationships and they couldn't be bothered to do anything without their partner, usually at the expense of all of their friendships. But you do have a crush on her, a small voice in the back of his head pointed out. Well, of course, but I've never told her that, so she can't be held to that standard, Harold sighed. If I'm honest with myself, it wouldn't hurt so bad if I had anyone else who I felt understands me. Samantha didn't truly understand him, but she was the closest of his peers to getting it. Harold didn't understand high schoolers. They cared about who said what over social media, who hooked up with who, what the newest celebrity gossip was, and what the seasonal sports teams were doing. He didn't care about any of those things. Harold didn't blame them. People were allowed to like and care about whatever they wanted, but it was isolating. Hey, maybe if you found other hobbies aside from calligraphy, the small voice said. I know, he argued with himself. What's worse is it's not even in English. Harold had watched an anime on Japanese calligraphy when he was in 6th grade, and ever since, the art form had him hooked. He'd spent the next 4 years convincing his parents to get him art supplies and practicing the form. The ironic thing is that Harold was good. He'd really grown a talent for the art, winning multiple awards in his small county fairs, and even more honorable mentions in bigger art contests from neighboring cities. Harold was good, but it didn't help him make friends. Even Samantha, he said, only is one of my pieces. She'd taken the piece out of friendship, but never understood. He'd seen it sitting in a pile of papers in the corner of her room. She'd promised that she was working on getting it framed, but Harold understood. It wasn't even something that offended him, just another thing to demonstrate how much no one, not even his best and only real friend, understood him. Harold leaned back onto the cold ground, looking up at the night sky. The moon was new, meaning the stars were bright. Despite his foul mood, Harold couldn't help seeing some stars line up with the Japanese characters. He pulled out his notepad, jotting down the idea with a rough image of the stars. His idea was to put dots on the paper where the stars were, then write around it a character from kanji. He wasn't sure which would fit best. Maybe the character for stars, he thought, finishing up the rough sketch of the night sky. When he looked up one more time, a shooting star streaked through the center of the stars he was mapping. Harold smiled, drawing a streak through the center of his star map. "I wish I had someone who understood me," he said aloud. "I wish there was someone just like me, so that I wouldn't need to worry about Sam getting a boyfriend. I want her to live life outside of our friendship, but being lonely hurts." He put his feelings to words, and it released a weight off of his chest. Harold didn't believe in shooting stars, but he did believe in the power of words. He stood up, brushed some dust off of himself, and walked into the house. It had been long enough that his parents had gone to bed. He grabbed a quick snack and headed up to his room. He finished the food quickly, unwilling to sketch and eat at the same time. Once done, he moved to his desk, pulling out the materials as well as his sketch of the stars. He started by placing the dots on the paper, one for each star. Once done, he looked at his reference book for a good kanji to use. He decided on the symbol for star, Hoshi. It wasn't perfect, but he made the symbol fit nicely around the star sketch. For an art form focused on precision and form of the strokes, this piece was no masterpiece. Harold knew that, but it was the first sketch. He'd figure out the best way to make the strokes without covering the stars, then practice until he could make them with better calligraphy form. Done with the first sketch, he compared it to his jotted down star map. He smiled, dipped his brush in the ink, and made a single long stroke through the piece. The shooting star he'd seen was a nice touch. "I know no one to talk about this with," Harold thought to himself. That dark thought seeped into his mind, making it hard to want to continue. He cleaned his supplies and put them away. He left the first attempt to the star piece on his desk to dry and went to bed. Sleep didn't come easily to him, but when it finally took Harold, it was a deep sleep full of dreams. Harold woke up to the sound of his alarm. He stopped it, rolled out of bed, and stood up. As he rubbed the sleep out of his eyes, Harold moved towards his desk. He wanted to look at the piece he'd made the night before with fresh eyes. It wasn't there. "Where did I put it?" Harold questioned. "I could have sworn it was on my desk." He searched all over and around his desk, but he couldn't find it. Harold shook his head, but left for the bathroom. He'd have time to look for it later. He walked across the hall to the bathroom to begin his morning routine. Right as he was finishing up brushing his teeth, he heard his mom outside in the hall. "Harold, I thought you were up," she said. "Why did you get back in bed?" He raised an eyebrow. Harold hung up his towel and opened the door. "What?" a groggy voice called out. "Harold, are you feeling sick?" his mom said. She was standing in his doorway, looking confused. When Harold stepped out, her gaze flashed to him for a moment, then back to his room. She narrowed her gaze and looked back to him. "Harold, what kind of prank is this?" "Prank?" Harold moved past his mom and into his room. He froze, eyes wide. There, curled up in his bed, was himself.
All right, so, yeah, I have this idea. I know I've had people tell me, "Oh, everyone feels like this." I don't know if everyone does, but I don't think it's as unique as I thought I was in high school. No, I don't do calligraphy. I'm not trying to make this character a glove that's myself. But the emotion that I felt of, there isn't a single person who understands the way my brain works, and I just don't have friends who understand me at all. That was a very, prominent feeling for me. And so this story will hopefully capture some of that. The whole story and this idea that I had of how cool it would be to wake up and have a twin one day who was just me and enjoyed the stuff I liked. And some of you will go, "Oh, that's not a new story idea," and you'll probably see exactly where everything's going. But I enjoy it, so I'm going to take a crack at it and we'll see how it goes. But yeah, come back next week for chapter 2. I don't know how many chapters it will be. Probably something like 10. Most of them should be longer than this. And again, I reserve the right to rewrite this one. I might, if I rewrite this one, release it in like a bigger compilation that's rewritten, or like just a not on a Wednesday. But we'll see how it goes. If you like it, let me know. If not, don't let me know. That'll make me sad. It won't make me sad. I'm trying to get back in the swing of this, and I'm not going to lie that today is not a great day for me, but that's fine. I'm going to roll with it because just writing helps me get back into the habit. So we're going to do that, and I will see you guys next week. Anyway, okay, bye.